Here is a sentence question. They say a car travel from P to Q at average speed. So we just draw P to Q 2 points. And then the average speed is 72 km per hour. And then after that, they say that the car continue to travel to city Q to R. So we have another part. And this time, this section, the average speed is 90 km per hour. And then after that, at the same time, they tell us the distance. They don't tell us the distance of each section, but they tell us the total. The total distance is 220 km. And then in total, they spend 161 minutes in this journey. And then they ask how long does the car take to travel from P to Q. And then in your mind it's mess up everything. We don't know what to do. But think carefully. In section A, there are some question type is really common. And that question is simultaneous equations. Even though it's not the typical type, but this is simultaneous equation, you can solve it by letting two values. The key point is they give you a tips is they ask you how long does the car take. That means we concern about the time. The first thing you should do is let the time. X hour, let's say. And then the time spent from Q to R be Y hours. And then there are two information which is given. The first one is about the time. The second one is about the distance. I think it's easier to write an equation with time, so we just start first. About the time requirement, we know that we spend X hour plus Y hours should equal to 161 minutes. But here is a problem, is 161 minutes is not the same units as what we let, and we prefer to use hours because of the speed. So we have to change this one. If you want to change the unit, you find out your target, you want to change unit to hour, then you just think about how they are related. 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes, everyone know that. So if you want minutes, then you just divide both sides by 60. Therefore, we know the word minutes. That just represents 1 over 60 hour. Now we are going to replace it by 1 over 60 hours. Then we get 161 over 60 hours. So both sides times 60, we get 60x plus 60y is equal to 161. And then we finish about using the constraint, the time, about the time. Now we are going to consider the distance. The total distance, that means distance from PQ. And then another section. Distance from QR is equal to 210 km. Now the problem is, how do we express the distance from P to Q? In primary school, we know that the distance travel is equal to the speed time how long did we spend. So 72 km per 1 hour. If we use 2 hours, then that means 72 km times 2 will be the distance travel. So in this logic, if we travel for X hours with this speed, then this distance will equal to 72 km per hour times X hour. Similar reason, the distance between Q and R will be 90 times Y. Until this step, then you have two equations already with X and Y. Then you can use your calculator to get the answer. But if you want to get the full marks, you have to show how you eliminate the questions by yourself. you may choose this equation, both sides times 72, and then this equation, both sides times 90. But for me, I prefer smaller numbers, so I realize that all items here are divisible by 3. So I try to divide both sides by 3 here. We get 24x plus 30y equal to 70. And I remember that I want 60y, so to get 60, I will both sides times 2 now. 48x and then plus 60y give you 140. Now I'm going to put them together. This part equal to this part, and this part equal to this part. So if I use this left hand side minus this left hand side, then it's equal to this left hand side minus this left hand side. So I try to minus them, because I know 60y minus 60y will become 0, and only one unknown is left. So 60x and then minus 48x. 60y minus 60y disappear, should equal to right hand side minus right hand side. So we know this makes sense, and then it gives us 12x and 21. Then we divide both sides by 12. We get x is equal to 21 over 12. If you do not feel comfortable, then you may write in decimal form. It's 1.75. And then we read the question once again. They ask how long does the car take to travel from P to Q. P to Q, that means x here. We do not concern about y, so we can answer the questions. It takes 1.75 hours. Again, for this kind of question, the most important thing is you realize we have two criteria, which mean two different equations, and then you need to know what item you should let. And here I will concern about the time. That's why we should let it be time of first section, the time span for the second section, and then try to express the given constraint in terms of equation. Then we get these two equations, then just use what you have learned in junior form to solve the equations. We just need x here, so we don't need to calculate y.